Hello and welcome to a Friday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham and I'm joined today by Kurt Weiler. Nick Carlisle will be joining us a little bit later to talk about some recruiting, but we're in honor of what's going on at the Indianapolis 500, which they call Fast Friday, where all the cars get 4 laps. And because there's so much going on campus, softball game is getting ready to start. It's been getting ready to start for the last 30 minutes. We got a baseball game at 7 against North Carolina. So, Kurt, how is it? You've had a busy week. You've been at a lot of golf. You saw a lot of golf at the Seminole Legacy course, and saw a lot of baseball last night.
Well, yeah, and I'll be at all 3 baseball games this weekend. It is a busy week, but it's a fun time of year. Always fun when there's a lot going on.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about last night. I mean, obviously. A lot of people thinking because they had 2 of the best pitchers on the country on the mound, it was going to be kind of one of those real fast games, a lot of strikeouts, a lot of ground outs, and 2.5 hours or so. And that's not what happened. Although it was both pitchers pitched well, but obviously North Carolina prevailed 8-3 on Saturday night. And really, as you said before we got taping the show, it was still kind of a pitcher's duel. Both guys pitched good. One guy just pitched better.
Well, yeah. I mean, UNC starter Jake Knapp threw a complete game, a 9-inning complete game. I think it was UNC's first since 2022. I didn't look up. I probably should have looked up. Like, when's the last time Florida State allowed a 9-inning complete game to be thrown against them? You don't see a ton of them in college baseball, but Jake Knapp was really on it. I think it was a night where you saw Florida State's they're always aggressive at the plate, and you saw that really work against them where they kind of had some weak contact early in at bats and let him keep his pitch count down. And Jamie was by no means bad. He allowed 4 runs, but he was not nearly as efficient. UNC did a great job of making him working walks and getting traffic on the bases. And I think they really only squared him up twice, but one was a homer. And one was a 2-run triple, and they chased him after 5 innings. He took 94 pitches to throw 5 innings, which is quite inefficient, especially, I would say, by his standards. He's normally good at keeping the pitch count down. I think he struck out 8, so that was working for him. I kind of don't subscribe to some of what I saw on Twitter about some Florida State fans seem to think he was tipping pitches or that UNC was stealing pitches from the guys on second base. But considering how rarely he was squared up and how many strikeouts he had, especially in situations where guys on second base, I don't incline to think that. But I think it's more, the offense, because you look at it, it was what I think the 5th and 6th innings, UNC had 7 runs. That's where the game was lost. They got some early success against the bullpen, and then they had a good last inning against Jamie. But they put up some fight late. Lodi's hit another homer. Cal Fisher had 2 doubles, but when you only have 4 hits, we knew UNC's pitching staff was good. We knew their starter was good. He entered as ACC's probably pitcher of the year frontrunner over Jamie, and definitely cemented that last night. If it wasn't already cemented, it is now. And it's bounced back tonight at 7 on ACC Network.
Yeah, well, if they were getting tipped, it only really affected 2 guys, Van de Break and Galler. That was the 2 guys that did most of the damage. They had 5 of the 8 hits and 6 of the 8 RBIs.
Well, yeah, and I think only one of those was with the guy on second, which is where people thought the tipping was happening. And there were 2 other times with the guy on second where Jamie struck out a guy on a nasty slider in the dirt. So, to me, I don't know. It's people tipping pitches is interesting. I think coaching staff normally does a good job of picking up on when things like that are happening, but it's not why they lost the game. They lost the game because the offense couldn't really touch Jake Knapp or couldn't get much consistent success against Jake Knapp.
Yeah, and Jacob says Holtz was getting tipped, and I did see. Now I don't know what they saw, but I've seen the video you're talking about, Kurt, where if it's a breaking ball, the guy doesn't do anything with his hands. If it's a fastball, he was raising his hand out to his side, parallel to the with the pointing back towards second base. Yeah, listen, is all right. So I don't know this. I mean, I just assume that everyone tries to steal signs. This goes on all the time. Is this a big deal in baseball these days, where if you're tipping pitches, there's going to be any kind of retaliation? It's been
no. That's not retaliation. Yeah. I think what they would say is don't let it happen. Either don't be showing your grip in the glove where guys on second could see it, or, I mean, like, try and steal them yourself. Get a guy on second. I mean, Florida State didn't have a ton of guys on second base to maybe be able to take advantage of the same thing. But, again, I'm not even sure it happened. I mean, the whole Connor Holtz thing, we can talk about that. He pitched for the first time in, I think, almost 2 months last night. He'd been out for an extended time with injury, and he, I thought, looked pretty good. I think Link said postgame looked as good as he has maybe all season last night in his first time out in 2 months. And I think he got 2 outs and allowed 1 single. So it's not like he was getting squared up either, really. But yeah, I think it's possible something like that could happen after such a long layoff. But I never know for sure with tipping, and I always am inclined to think a coaching staff's going to figure out if it's happening, because they're paid real well to do that, and there are trust me, Link staff is quite baseball smart.
No, well, hopefully we just won't hear anybody beating on garbage cans from either one of the dugouts tonight. That's a reference back to the Astros pitch tipping thing. I didn't know how big a deal it was in college. I mean, I just assumed playing baseball up through high school that it was probably common that people are trying to steal signs, tip pitches.
They're always trying, yeah.
Yeah, all that kind of thing. So, but I've seen so much made of it over the social media since the game last night. I was like, well, is this a no-no in baseball anymore? You're not allowed to do that. It's just you got to stop yourself from doing it. Of course, listen, the loss drops them to third place in the ACC, and obviously I know you wrote in your pre-series preview that there was a lot riding on this, seeding for the ACC tournament, obviously, and then probably more importantly, seeding for the Super Regional. One of the offshoots of last night's game, Kurt, was people think the weakness of this particular team is the bullpen. You went through 4 guys last night, but nobody other than Nair pitched more than 2/3 of an inning. He pitched 2. Everybody else was 2/3 of an inning. Of course, Martinez got he gave up the home run. But how does this impact Link's ability to use the bullpen the last 2 games of this series?
Yeah, I think you're right. Kinnear is probably the only one who's outright unavailable today and might be done for the weekend. I imagine everyone else could be available to go again at some point. I mean, you didn't use Joe Charles, you didn't use John Abraham. That's maybe the luxury of being behind, is you're not going to win your behind by, especially once you're behind by 4 runs, use your top arms. The problem is UNC's got quite a few bullpen arms and didn't have to use any of them last night. So their starter tonight, Jason DeCaro's got pretty good numbers. It's similar-ish to Joey Vellini, I would say. But, yeah, I mean, even if he's not going the best and doesn't go nearly as deep as Knapp did, their bullpen's at full force. And so that certainly feels advantage UNC in that area for sure. And that's something to keep an eye on. Florida State's got their top few arms still available if it's a competitive one tonight, more competitive than last night's maybe was when it got away from him in the middle innings. But, yeah, I think we'll see for sure how things play out. I mean, you put some pressure on Joey Vellini because you haven't lost the first 2 games of a series all season. You haven't lost the first 2 games of a weekend series all season. You're trying to avoid that tonight, and you're facing another pretty good pitcher in Jason DeCaro.
Yeah, and do you have any concern? Florida State's only put 8 runs on the board their last 3 games. Clearly, you were going to get against one of the better pitchers you faced, and the kid from North Carolina, Knapp, last night, who, by the way, I'm assuming he played football at some point in his high school career, because he is a big joker, and I imagine it's not fun when he probably ends up about 56 feet from you when he's releasing his pitch. He's 6'4", takes a long stride. But are you concerned with the hitting? With the lack of, well, maybe not so much the lack of hitting, but maybe the lack of run production. You got shut out at Cal, scored 5 runs, the rubber game of that match, and then obviously scored 3 last night. And it's, I guess it's hard to believe this particular Florida State. 8 runs in 3 games just does not sound like it's something that we would come to expect from this team. Now, obviously, the competition this weekend's gotten better.
To me, it hinges on this weekend. The Cal series was weird, where there was some weird wind stuff going on. The shutout, that game happens. Those games happen. They should have put up feels like a lot more than 5 runs in that last game of the Cal series. I think Drew Farreau had a homer robbed by some crazy wind blown in, maybe chased to a few others. I feel like they hit the ball better than kind of the 5 runs in that Sunday game would show you. To me, it's all about this weekend, and that was my thought kind of coming into this. So this weekend was going to be a good indicator to me of how I felt somewhat about this offense going into the postseason. When you look at this UNC team, I mean, they're one of the better pitching staffs in the country. I think they entered the weekend 4th nationally in ERA and kind of the best of any high major team. So it's a good test of, some high-level talents you're going to see if you make it to Omaha. And how does this offense do? I mean, it's the best pitching staff top to bottom you face this season. And so if it is a bad weekend across the board, that will be definitely a bit concerning for how do you feel about this offense against, if it were to make it to Omaha, against kind of those top tier pitching staff. This is a good litmus test for that. And if they have 3 underwhelming games, it will not be the best kind of, it'll be somewhat of an indictment, it feels like, of this group going into the ACC tournament next week.
Well, let me get your read on this. All right, let's assume that Florida State takes the next 2 and goes 2-3 in this series. Obviously, would head into the ACC tournament with some momentum. Do you think that the top 8 seeds in the regionals will be set this weekend by the committee that sets that, or do you think that they will watch the ACC tournament play out before they do that? And could Florida State either solidify themselves one way or the other coming out of this series, depending on where it goes 2-3 or 0-3 or 1-3?
I don't think the top 8 by any means. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't think the top 8 by any means are locked in at the moment or coming out of this week. Even I do think they have a good idea of where things are, and I feel like we always think they're going to put a lot of, the same is true in basketball, a lot into a conference tournament, and they don't. The committee does not put as much into that, so it matters to a degree, but I don't think it matters a ton. Yeah, I think, talking about the various scenarios, if Florida State wins the next 2 and takes the series, to me, they have locked in a top 8. They could go one and done. They would be a top 4 seed in the ACC tournament, and they would get a double bye, but they could lose that quarterfinal game. It wouldn't matter. It's a top 8 seed when you look at the resume, the RPI, all of that. Where that gets trickier is, if they lose this series, like you said, or especially if they were to get swept, they could absolutely have some work to do. It's something where you don't want to leave it up to chance to a degree. Last year, I will say, for saying the committee might not pay a ton of attention to conference tournaments, Florida State earned the number 8 seed last year in the ACC tournament. They were probably not a top 8 coming into that week, won their pool, won their semifinal game against they played Wake Forest, and then lost to Duke in the title game. That is where those few extra wins got them into the top 8 probably. The elephant in the room you can't ignore that is helping Florida State is Michael Alford being on that committee. He has to step out of the room when they talk about Florida State, but I think the fact remains him being in there will help Florida State in the conversation. And just like it's true for all the other, Florida's AD is on the committee as well. So that could help them if maybe like last year where it's a bit of a toss up or there's some uncertainty, but you probably have to win 2 your next 3 to feel good about it and not just hope that they maybe like the metrics more than some other people do and leave it up to chance. Because if you lose one more, chances are UNC's taking your spot in the 4, 5, 6 range, and you're more in the 7, 8 range of national seeds.
Yeah, well, Dick Hauser is such a great atmosphere for regionals. I hope they secure They'll get a regional. It's a super.
Yeah,
regional,
to me looked up a regional.
Yeah. Well, you would hope they would get a super regional if they can qualify for the super regional, just because Dick Hauser baseball, postseason baseball is always good. The crowds are always good. They draw well for those events. So I hope they can lock it down. I hope they get it corrected with Joey Vellini on the mound tonight against Jason DeCaro, and so both teams have really good number 2 pitchers. So you got a chance to see another a well-pitched game if both of them are hot. So we'll see what happens there. And then Saturday, what time is the game on Saturday, Kurt?
2 p.m. on Saturday. And that's the only one that's not on like TV proper this weekend. That one will be ACC Network Extra with Ari on the call.
Yeah. Well, I'm still waiting on the softball game. I have no idea what's going on. Who's Auburn playing? USF?
Yeah, so they're in the I think the 9th inning.
Okay. Oh, extra.
Yeah, USS up 12-7. They hit a grand slam, it looks like, at the top of the 9th. So it seems like it's finally about to be over. But yeah, the first game was long and went to extra innings. Is
there any chance it was Derek Brooks' kid who hit the grand slam? I didn't realize she is the starting third baseman for USF. So that's pretty cool. I didn't know Debo had a child still playing college sports. I think she must be the baby. But yeah, so that was kind of cool. I saw his picture sitting in a USF shirt in the stadium there before it started. So I think it was Ira Schoffel who posted a picture of him in the softball stadium. So that was pretty cool to see. So we're pulling for USF in that one for a lot of reasons, but mostly because Derek Brooks' daughter plays for USF. So we'll pull for her against Auburn, and then we'll pull for Florida State the rest of the way. And they've got Robert Morris, and they are still showing things other than softball on the ACC network. So I'm going to have to flip back to the PGA Championship pretty soon, which has been pretty good so far. Although Brooks Koepka had a bad day yesterday, if you're talking about Florida State guys. All right, so speaking of golf, perfect segue. You spent a lot of time out at Seminole Legacy and got to see a couple things that were pretty good for Florida State. You got to see an individual championship one and obviously a team regional championship. First of all, I've got to think that I've only played that course once under its current configuration. Now, when I was a college student, you go out there and play for $10. I played all the time. Now they want $180 or something dollars every time I try to go out there. Yeah, so I do think that is a home course. That's a very difficult course. So I think Florida State, they are preparing their players for the pros. That's one of the most difficult courses I've ever played. And the day we played there, not the time I played with you, but I know we played. No, it was the time I played with you, Jerry and Bob. I don't know if you remember, but they had those greens NCAA tournament fast. And so it's fascinating to see how much faster they are for these college kids than they are for the average golfer. But anyway, I digress. It's a hard course. And anyway, Florida State dominated, ran away with it. They were at minus 29 as a team. Then obviously Luke Clanton won the individual championship. You were out there. What was the atmosphere like, and what was the competition like?
Yeah, there were a decent amount of fans out there. I think when you have a guy like Luke Clanton who's going pro once this season ends, it builds that excitement. I felt like there were even some maybe people who aren't Florida State fans just wanted to come watch Luke Clanton and the team come golf for out on the course. It was you can still see a little the sun effects of a few days out there. I was out there a long time, especially on Wednesday. I was out there quite a while and walked the whole front nine with Luke. But yeah, I mean he's a heck of a golfer. They're a heck of a team, no doubt. They would probably not deny they benefited some from the home course effect this week, winning the regional and Luke winning the individual title. But I think that there's a world where you could kind of take that for granted and not come with the full focus, but they were incredibly focused, and Trey Jones, the head coach, was quite happy with Luke, quite happy with his team, and it certainly speaks of Luke. I mean, talking about it was clear when Luke talked how much more the team title and getting to move on to NCAA championships would start a week from today for the men. They actually started today for the women out in California. How much more the team title meant than the individual title. I mean, Luke came back. Luke could have gone on probably into the Korn Ferry Tour or something, but he came back to earn his PGA card, which he did a few months ago, and he came back to avenge the demons of last year and win the national title when they lost in the national title match last year. And I think now they're positioned to do it, and they are certainly quite confident headed off to California.
That's not a bad reward. They get to go to the Omni La Costa Resort and Spa in Carlsbad, California, and you ought to hit Jerry up to see if you can go cover that and go walk around that course for a couple of days. That would be sweet. Of course, you were smart on Wednesday when you walked around, because I think that's the last spring day we're going to have this year, because it is blazing hot today.
It was hot out there Wednesday.
We've officially welcomed summer to Tallahassee. So, that was great for Luke, great for the team, and of course, the sports are starting to wind down here. We're going to be talking about we'll be officially in talking season here in about 4 or 5 weeks once baseball and softball wrap up. Hopefully it takes 4 or 5 weeks. All right. So, Kurt, do you want to stay on and talk about the over-under for Clemson? We're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. All right. So we're going to let Nick in right now, and we're going to segue to football. Nick, what's going on, man?
How's it going, everybody?
I'm glad to see you made it safely back from your appointment.
Oh, I could have walked it. Luckily, it was very close by for me. I walked in, gave up a couple of vials of blood, and walked out. Love a fast experience with those kind of things. So, nothing wrong with me, by the way. It's just I just want to make that abundantly clear. It's just a checkup.
Just general. General, yeah. I see you were Terrence Knight. You've already got the Terrence Knight offers up. I see that. All right. Yeah. So listen. As my buddy told me the other night, spring football's over. The portal's closed. We have reached talking season for college football, and that's all we have to do for the next several months until the guys report to camp about August 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, somewhere in there, because the first game is August 30th. So I'm just going to say August 1st is when Florida State will report, because old days used to get 28 practice opportunities before in fall camp. I don't know if that's the case. They may actually arrive in late July, but I digress. All right, so as I'm looking around on the internet yesterday, searching things, I see that FanDuel has put out their over-unders for ACC win totals next year or this upcoming season. So the first question, I'm going to give you the team and the over-under. We're going to break down Clemson because they're the team that is rated to win the most. But I just want you guys tell me whether you think it's just – and we know – and this is the reason it's probably more talking season than ever, because now everybody has to go back in now that the portal is over. And I did this with Alabama yesterday, and we'll have my spring Alabama preview tomorrow, post-spring Alabama preview tomorrow, where I look at the additions to their roster and all that. But, we now have to go back in and relook at all these programs post-spring because of the portal and who they've added and how spring football played out. So we're really taking this at brand value, right? I mean, that's how most of this is done until you start doing a deep dive into actual personnel acquisitions and all of that. All right, so Clemson, the thing that struck me funny was there's no double-digit win forecast for the ACC this year. So Clemson at 9.5, too high or too low? And we're going to break down Clemson's schedule. So just at face value, you think 9.5 is too high or too low?
Well, I haven't looked at their schedule, admittedly. Let me pull it up now.
All right. All right. So let's just go through that. So Clemson's at 9.5.
Yeah, let's go through that first.
And all right. So they get LSU at home, followed by Troy, then go to Georgia Tech, then at home against Syracuse, then at UNC, at Boston College, then home against SMU, Duke, and FSU, then at Louisville, Furman at home, and then at South Carolina.
I think that's low. I have them at 10 or 2. 10 and 2 or better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
It's at 9.5. The line's at 9.5, right?
Yes, the line's at 9.5.
They don't. So, I know this is talking season and everything, but I look and listen to that schedule, and it's like they don't really have a super tough road game. You talk about BC, at UNC with the first year of Bill Belichick, and if he's going to make it to week 1. And then maybe Georgia Tech and South Carolina, your toughest 2 road games, and Georgia Tech,
Louisville.
maybe. Oh, yeah, Louisville too. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like there's the potential for them to probably like at 8-4, 9-3. I think 9, like just under 9. Like I'm kind of leaning on the internet. Like I feel I don't have the utmost confidence in what Clemson was able to do last year, like towards the back end, and like how they're going to carry that momentum in the year. So obviously it's year to year. I don't know. I just feel like they could drop one of those. I don't know. I think I'm going to take under.
Yeah, I went with the over. And I think they beat Troy. I think they beat Syracuse. I think they beat North Carolina. They got a new quarterback, new system fairly early in the year. BC, Duke, Furman. I think the key games in their schedule are LSU, Georgia Tech, SMU, FSU, Louisville, and South Carolina. So if they get split those 6 games, those 6 what I call key games, and not all of those are 50-50 games. Clemson's going to be favored in probably all but 1, 2, maybe at least preseason. Heading into the preseason, they would be the favorites to win. I could see them being, let's say they're at home against SMU, so they'll be a favorite there. Maybe at South Carolina, maybe to LSU at home, a underdog. So I think if they can, and I think North Carolina's getting a little bit too much Bill Belichick credit with all they have to replace. I mean, they lost their best defensive end, Bo Atkinson. They lost I think they've got to replace a quarterback. Anyway, there was a lot going wrong there at the end of the year. So I'm going over.
First years are tough for any college coach,
yeah.
especially with that transition, especially for one of the best coaches of all time. So I mean, it's
I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun. We're going to find out some good coaches in college football. Bill Belichick is. he might want to.
If he gets there, he's got to get there first.
He might want to see if Tom Brady's got any eligibility left. Wants to come back and be the quarterback, because they took a quarterback in the portal, I believe. So they were not happy with where they were.
Graduate assistant Tom Brady at the age of 46, right? Something like that.
Yeah, player and coach. Yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting. I've got them over for right now. I'll dig in. Well, I'm going to do my Clemson summer preview. I may change that, but this is just at face value. And listen, they could get upset by North Carolina, maybe Duke, although I don't after losing to Duke 2 years ago, I don't ever see them losing to Duke again. I think that's probably something that'll never happen there again. But we'll see. So I got them at 10. Kurt, you got them where?
I think 10's probably right.
Okay.
I could see 11. I think the thing is, I would say 11 before 9, and that's why I picked the over. I'd say 10, but 11 before 9.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's listen, supposedly the quarterback's taking the next step. We'll see. Who knows? I can't always believe everything I read anymore. There's just too much stuff out there.
Do you remember who their new defensive coordinator is?
I do not know. Tom Allen.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that hire.
Yeah, I like Tom Allen. That'll be good for Clemson, and I think they will benefit from that as well. So, all right, so let's just go now. Y'all want to wait to go through these one show at a time? We can do that. I've got Miami up already. If you all want to talk Miami,
sure.
We can hold that off till Monday.
No, I'm down to go through Miami.
Let's do Miami and push off the rest. Let's not burn through the whole clip, but let's do Miami.
No.
Yeah, maybe 2 per show, because there's 16 teams in the ACC, something like that.
Yeah. 17. We went with an even 17 in the ACC. Not even the number of schools doesn't make sense in the ACC.
Well, then there's
a screwed up conference.
Well,
it really is. It makes no sense.
Could be the Pac-12, or formerly known as the Pac-12.
And really, since Clemson and Notre Dame signed the contract for 12 years, can't we just count them as the 18th team and make it an even number? All right, so Miami, they're at 8.5 wins according to FanDuel, and they have 8 home games, guys. That's the first thing that stuck out to me. They play 4 road games this year. They got Notre Dame at home, followed by Bethune-Cookman, USF, and Florida. Then they get an open date and come to Florida State. Then they get an open date and host Louisville. Then Stanford, then at SMU, Syracuse, NC State, at Virginia Tech, and at Pitt. I struggled with this one because I don't know if we know as much about this Miami team as we did last year's Miami team. Now, I know they've invested heavily in portal, and you would think they would be good, but listen, I got Florida as a toss-up game, Florida State as a toss-up game, Louisville, SMU, and probably Notre Dame. So I've got 5 toss-up games, at least 5 toss-up games. 8.5. Whew. Like I said, I could. All right, so I could see them are just what I call the key games: Notre Dame, Florida, FSU, Louisville, SMU, NC State. I thought it was on the road when I put that on there, so it's probably not true. And Virginia Tech, because it is on the road, and that's generally been a pretty good rivalry over the years. I could see them losing half those games.
It's interesting. I wonder if like different sports booksters had different lines. Because I'm looking here at the Brett McMurphy tweet, and he said when it opened at Circa, Miami's line opened at 9. So has that been bet down to 8.5, or did it just open different at FanDuel? I wonder. I
think it just opened different at FanDuel. Now,
I don't know.
Yeah, I've got them right at 8. I don't know if I'm going over 8.5.
Well, I mean, it's the kind of the question of the offseason is how healthy is Carson Beck? How good is his arm?
Not as healthy since Haley Cavender broke his heart.
Yeah. Well, isn't that funny how that works? It's probably. I wonder how much apart from like the nice NIL deal that played a part in him going down there, but only for that's But yeah, I don't know. I think the question is really just how healthy is Carson Beck. I mean, Mario seems to think that he's going to be 100% good to go. Obviously, nobody really knows how things are going to look until he steps out onto the field. Now they're getting into like the Florida State territory where they take so many portal guys that you can't really like you need to see them come in and produce in a new system in a new place. So I think I'm gonna take the under again. I think they get to 8, but I don't think they get to 9.
I think that's about right. I think their defense will be better. New defensive coordinator. I know they revamped that secondary. That was the biggest part. I mean, it's funny. Florida State added one player in the post-spring window in the secondary. Miami, that was their biggest area of need in the portal, and they really addressed that. I think the thing is, even if Carson Beck is healthy, which again, we don't know for sure, Mario's going to say he's healthy, but we'll see where he's at in August. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. We'll see. It's similar to kind of how Billy Napier's talking about DJ Lagway right now. Like he's throwing or
how Mike is talking about Castellanos, one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
But Castellanos doesn't have injury thing. The other two are both dealing with injury things that kept them out of spring. That's my point. Okay, you're right in that spring and off summer.
It's the hype up your quarterback time of the calendar.
No, more with Carson. It's like you said, how healthy is he? And the truth is, even if he's healthy, he's not Cam Ward. Like I think he to me is not going to save them. He's I think a quite good quarterback. But he's not going to save them the way Cam Ward did multiple times last year.
Well, what's
their record if they don't have Cam
players
Ward?
They lost on offense outside of Cam, right? Restrepo and Isaiah Horton and the running back and
Damian Martinez. Yep.
Yeah.
Arroyo, the tight end.
Their offensive line will be quite good. Yeah. Elijah,
they didn't allow him back for a 20th year.
No.
That's the other one.
That's McCormick. Is that right? Is that
McCormick.
Is that the guy that's as old as I am that was still playing?
Cam McCormick. But Elijah Arroyo was 3 or 4 and done.
You and Tyler Chuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the fact of the matter is, even if Carson's healthy, I don't see this being the Miami team that breaks through and makes the ACC title. Like if the Cam Ward team couldn't make the title, to me, the defense is going to have to be a lot better for me to think this is the Miami team that will break through and make or win the ACC title if last year's team with Cam couldn't.
Yeah.
No, and there were multiple weeks last year where they probably should have lost too.
Yep.
Like there were multiple weeks where they were on a certain like cardiac Canes run for about 3 straight weeks.
Yep. They were living right.
Obviously, teams change so much year to year. You can't see carry over so much, but it's one of your favorite talking points, Pat. It's who's on the sideline coaching.
It is with Miami because that guy makes some baffling decisions.
Yeah.
Listen, he might be the greatest guy on the face of the earth, and he might turn out to be one of the greatest tacticians of all of college football history, but that has not proven to be the case on the tactician side. And plus, it's Miami, and as you guys well know, they're my least favorite team that Florida State plays.
He pulled out the entire upgrade path on the recruiter side in the college football video game. Nothing on tactician, nothing on motivator, or whatever it is. That's more of a reference to Kurt. For Kurt than for you.
I know one thing. He knows where to go find money. That's for sure, because I got guys pouring money into that program for NIL. So, listen, he's going to have a good team. We'll see how it all meshes together. And plus, I kind of want to, listen, they took some risk in the portal. The kid from Rutgers who's had 2 knee operations, he may be a good player. He may not be. Nobody knows. He hadn't played a lot of football. So.
Oh, is that where he ended up?
Yeah, he ended up.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
I should have guessed.
Yes.
You could throw darts at a dartboard and you probably guess where the
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that was crazy how most everybody that we put on our board that FSU and Miami had interest in ended up at Miami almost exclusively. It's crazy. All right. So that was fun, and we'll do that with the rest of the ACC. Listen, I there were a couple of over-under totals that really surprised me. Like they got Louisville at 8.5. I didn't see that one coming. We'll talk about them later. They had Pitt at 5.5, which surprised me. I thought that was a little low. And then Wake Forest apparently has fallen off the face of the earth. They're at 4.5. So, and that's just not the Wake Forest we've become accustomed to under Dave Clawson, who's obviously no longer there. All right, Kurt. Well, we know you got to get to baseball, and we appreciate you hopping on. And Nick and I are going to talk a little recruiting because Florida State got some good news when another program got some bad news, and that is the decommitment of linebacker, defensive end Xavier Griffin from Gainesville High School in Georgia. He has decommitted to Florida from USC and is now set to take official visits to Texas, Ohio State, Alabama, and FSU. What do we need to know, Nick, on Xavier?
Yeah, well, this is something that, well, at least not as far as the decommitment, but Florida State has been really pushing for an official visit for a long time. He is one of their top targets at any position on the board this cycle. Yes, he was back on campus this spring to watch the practice, and I'd heard that Florida State was on the edge of getting an official visit with him. I'm kind of surprised that he fully decommitted from USC. Now maybe that has more to do with USC and kind of how they are in their class, because they have 25, 26 commitments right now. I mean, they could be done. So I don't know whether that was a mutual departing on both sides or whether Xavier just wanted to open things back up. But as of right now, Florida State getting his last official visit of the summer on June 20th or 22nd, one of those two. Or no, I think actually it's the 15th. The 22nd and the 20th is an open spot, which may or may not be filled by Georgia. It's hard to know. I know he's going to be there this weekend, or he's supposed to be there this weekend. That's kind of the one program that I was surprised to not see on his official visit list, given how much they have also pushed for him since he committed to USC last summer. So it's going to be there's certainly some big time programs in his official visit list. I think Alabama's one to watch. His family is apparently diehard Crimson Tide fans. So the good news though is that Florida State is in this, and they do have a real shot at probably one of the best defensive prospects in the country for this cycle.
Yeah, it's funny. It depends on who's talked to him last and what organization has talked to him. Today alone, I've heard Texas and Ohio State lead from one person. I heard Alabama leads for another. Then I talked to somebody at Gainesville High School that I know very well, and they told me the decommitment was coming. Also told me that Florida State either last week or the week before sent in every assistant coach to Gainesville to meet Xavier, and there's several other guys that are recruiting off that team. That's a very good high school football program right now under that head coach. I think it's his second or third year, and it's more like a small college football program. They just put suites in their high school stadium. I mean, it's crazy.
No, it's huge.
It's crazy. But they sent the whole staff in there outside of Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn. And this person told me, out of all the coaches, head coaches that is, of the teams that Xavier is seriously considering, he has a relationship with Mike that's not like the others. Now, I trust my source, and they hear a lot of things because they work at the school. So I'm trusting that is correct information. So I do think Florida State is legitimately in this game. And I do think ultimately Mike Norvell will be the difference in his recruitment, as well as whatever happens on the field this season. I do think that's a big part of it. If you listen to the show on a regular basis, you're probably going to get tired of me saying that because I say it just about every time we talk about an individual recruit. But I do think that, and certainly NIL, we can't kid ourselves anymore. NIL is definitely a part of it.
It's not an elephant in the room. It's a gigantic mass in the room. It's everywhere.
Yes.
So
I listen. I think they're in a good spot with him. He really does see. Apparently his relationship with Mike is kind of unique to the ones he has with other head coaches. Clearly, when you send your whole staff to a school, it is meant for effect, right? How many other schools are willing to do that? I do agree with you, Nick, that I think Georgia will end up being involved in this thing. Do I think he will set an official visit with Georgia? Yeah, I do. Do I think it matters? No, because he's 35 minutes from campus and he can show up there anytime he wants. And it's probably been on that campus more in the last 3 years than we can count on both hands. Just because of where it is. But, yeah, so, listen, he's got a little bit of familiarity with Georgia that he – just because of where he's centrally located to their campus that he doesn't have with the others. But do I think they get one? Yes. But, listen, Florida State's in it, and I think that's good news. They've got some momentum with one of the better players in the country. And, I think that, clearly I think that was one of the reasons. I'm not saying he's coming – to Florida State. I'm just saying that he was still a fan of Florida State despite being committed to USC. I'm sure he has some obviously has good feelings for these other three teams as well. So we'll see what happens, but it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've heard 3 different things on this kid from 2 different people.
Well, I think in terms of Florida State does have a real shot. I think you and I both agree on that. And his relationship with Mike is very real. I think, he's gone real hands-on with this recruitment, and it's really benefited Florida State. The reason I say Alabama, not only because the familial ties there, but also this is kind of one of those recruitments that Florida State has yet to win. It seems this seems like an SEC quality player that Florida State has not been able to. Maybe they get them initially, but holding on to them is a different story, right? Ohio State is probably, if we're ranking them out of those at official visits, they're probably 4. They're kind of newer into this because they have a new defensive coordinator that's now getting them back into this recruitment to where it's like, okay, it's becoming more of a scheme thing. Like he sees Ohio State has become more of a schematic fit for Griffin over the last month or so, now that they do have that new personnel there. But I think right now, and until Georgia gets involved, I think Alabama and Florida State are 1 and 2, and there's no real clear leader there. But I do think that Florida State genuinely has a good shot at this. It's just a matter of can they stick the landing? And it's Groundhog Day. Do they have a good enough season to keep them?
Yeah, listen, and also the one thing I talked to John Garcia about this and several other national guys, because it still reads funny to me when you see a kid coming in on a midweek visit, right?
Yes.
And
It's
I
weird.
believe right now Xavier's scheduled to come in the Monday after his weekend visit to Texas. It may not mean anything. I would love to see this get moved to June 20th and him be here for a weekend with other prospects. Now, this could be a concerted thing on Mike and the staff's part of bringing in him and giving him all the attention, right? And, we're here for you. This is how important you are to us. We don't have any other – I don't think there's anybody else coming on June 15th. I could be wrong.
I'm confident that there are. I'm checking right now.
I think you're right. I think there's another prospect.
Derek Cooper, Cooper,
yep.
Heze Kent, Xavier Crowell. We'll see if he makes it. Not positive. We'll see. And then there's a couple. So DJ Howerton, tight end, he's coming in on the 16th.
Okay.
I mean, some of these days.
So he would be there with some high level recruits. So yeah, that's good.
Evan Jacobson, tight end out of Iowa, is going to be there on the 16th. And then I think that's kind of that middle crop there. And I'm sure, honestly, they're bringing in so many guys on official visits. There's probably one or two that have been reported that we just haven't been able to confirm or haven't seen yet. So, but to your point, he's not coming. It's not a oh God, what was that kid's name who flipped to Florida in the spring in the 25 cycle? He was from overseas. It's not an Onus Konanbani situation where he comes in the first week of May and he's here all by himself. Right. So it's not one of those situations.
Yeah. Well, I like it better knowing he's got other kids around because I think it allows for a little bit more organic interaction and coaches can bounce and they're not hovering over Xavier. When you're the sole source of attention, it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but that's a me personality thing too, because that's just not me. I don't need the bright lights. That's why I chose to be in football operations for a bulk of my adult career. All right, so we got some other good news for Florida State. Breaking last night out of one of my favorite cities in the United States, Phoenix, Arizona. 2026 four-star offensive tackle Aaron Thomas has narrowed his list of potential college homes down to 5 schools, one of which is Florida State, where his dad, Eric, was an offensive lineman back in, I believe, the late 90s. And the 4 other schools involved are Washington, Ohio, which I think is fascinating. He's already taken his official visit to Washington, if Rivals records are correct, and that was on April 25th. So you really have to think that the other 4 schools are leading because there was no commitment coming out of that visit. So you got Ohio State on May 30th for Aaron, official visit-wise. Then he's going to be in Florida State on the weekend of June 6th. Then Texas on June 13th and Texas A&M on June 20th. The reason I feel good about this one, Nick, you got the legacy factor built in. His dad played here. Secondly, they didn't offer him until late April when Herb Hand went out there on, I believe, right before he went to Washington for his official visit. It was either right before or right after, and Herb offered the kid in school in an in-school visit. So clearly this relationship has taken off really quickly. They're less than 3 weeks into his offer, basically, less than a month ago.
It was just after. Let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I'm scrolling through his Twitter right now. There's like 15 different pictures of Seminole heads. Which one is it? It was right before. It was right before April 23rd. So that would have been, quite literally in the week before he went to Washington.
Yeah. So listen, you got to feel good, right? You don't really have a relationship with a kid. Les Herb was recruiting him at UCF. So this is a new relationship. Maybe not between FSU and Aaron because of a legacy they may have been aware of him. But clearly the offer did not go out till late for this recruiting cycle anyway, unless it's a quarterback, then it's not late. It's just the new normal for Florida State at quarterback. But anyway, so what are your thoughts on Aaron and Florida State potentially landing him?
Yeah, I mean, it shows significant interest. I mean, you would hope that there would be interest for a kid that, he was at the national championship game in 2013. Obviously, Florida State legacy. For him for Herb Hand to go out there, offer him personally, and then he, I texted him right that day, and he said, "I'll be officially visiting. I just don't have a date set yet." And that was prior to his official visit to Washington, right? it shows significant interest in Florida State, and you have to feel good about that. And I think it's at a position of, I don't want to say it's a position. Well, the entire offensive line is a position of need. Let's be honest. But
Yes.
specifically, Florida State has 2 interior guys committed already. Rivals officially moved Payne and classified him as an interior offensive lineman the other day with their new updated rankings. So you have 2 interior guys in Ionata and Payne. You're going to want to have some more established offensive tackles be coming to an official visit. So good that they're getting some bigger bodies and guys that fit more into that, playing in the outside of the line and bringing them in. So you got to feel good if you're Florida State that there's this much interest from a kid that you've technically offered late.
Yeah. So listen, they're in on it for sure. We'll see what happens when it gets on his official visit. It is a weekend visit, which makes me feel better. I don't like the midweek visits. But all right, so listen, I did some research this morning. All I found were 2027 and 2028 offers. FSU coaches are on the road. And so if you want to learn about the 2026 and 2027 and 2028 offers, go to the Osceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. You'll see latest offers on coaches on the road. You can look them up. But you just broke something that's a little bit more significant. And Terrence Knighton has deepened the defensive line board with 2 new 2026 offers, which we have not heard much about as far as 2026 offers this spring. Of course, we got more tied up with the portal than we did high school recruiting during the 3 weeks that was going on, 10 days, a couple days on either side of that. There were still some things going on, but they offered Whitley Cadeau out of Booker T, Washington, Atlanta. He is 6'5", 280. And they offered Corey Wells out of what must be a very green and full of flowers town in Mississippi called Petal, Mississippi. And I'm thinking flower petals and all of that. Now, maybe gas petals, spelled different, but it's spelled like a flower petal. So anyway, from Corey Wells, he is a 3-star, ranked the 43rd best defensive tackle in the country, 6'5", 290 from Petal High School in Petal, Mississippi. Nick's got some more information on the Florida State. If you want to read about the kids and their offers, you can go to floridastate.rivals.com or theosceola.com. They'll take you to the same place. We just found out about them, so we don't know a ton about them either. We have not researched them yet. These offers were extended just in the last hour or so. So Nick's got that up on the board. All right, Nick, you're going to Atlanta. I'm sure. I don't know if they've sent you a list of competitive guys.
I was just pulling it up. It's an impressive list, Pat. I don't know if all of these guys are going to be there, but holy smokes. There are a lot of big name kids that are going to be here this weekend.
Yeah. I figured you'd see. Is Zyke helping on that list by any chance?
Let me do a little Command F search here. He might be.
That's where I first saw Zyke, and I really liked the kid the day I saw him. He was a young buck. He was between going from his freshman to sophomore year, and he had just moved to the offensive line from the defensive line. And but that kid, I just want you to tell me what he looks like, because that kid has transformed his body in the last 28 months.
It doesn't look like he's going to be here, but I'm just going to scroll through and read you some names. And it's actually a really good camp for guys that Florida State is in on too. Let's see here. Cade Fryer isn't a kid that they're on, but obviously Florida State is very familiar with the Fryer family. Hayden Ainsworth, offensive tackle, has an official visit set to FSU. Trent Seaborn, obviously a 2027 quarterback that they're heavily invested in at this point. Tyreek Green, the Buford 2026. I think he's I think he's a defensive back, but he's an athlete. Yeah. Let's see here. Deuce Gerolds, that's a huge one. Cottrell Webb.
Yeah,
also.
You'll like watching Deuce compete. That guy gets after it.
Cottrell Webb is going to be there. Travis Burgess, obviously we're familiar with him. I did follow up with him. I don't think Florida State offered, just a little roundabout on that. Carson Baker is going to be there. Kanan Prothro.
Okay.
Florida State not in it for him anymore. I'm actually curious to know exactly what happened. I'm hoping to ask him that off the record. Aaron Gregory.
I can answer that question for you if you'd like.
Well, I'm sure. Well, it's probably not a super complicated answer. The answer is probably yeah. They went 2-10.
I don't even
Aaron
have to
Gregory,
use words, just numbers. There you go. You got it, Nick.
Yeah. Kayvon Conciero has an official visit. Just scrolling through here. Jay Lamar is going to be there. Let's see. Preston Ashley, Samari Matthews. Lots of good guys. We could go on for forever. There's going to be some dudes there. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to show up, but
no. That's a good list.
Oh God, I am still scrolling. This is a massive list. And it's not, and obviously it's not just Georgia kids. It's kids from Mississippi, the Carolinas, some Florida kids as well. So it's gonna be an event for sure in Atlanta, Georgia, tomorrow and Sunday. And honestly, I'm excited for it because, as I think I mentioned on Wednesday, there's a certain vibe to South Florida kids, and I'm interested to see kind of how things differ and how they get after it down in the Georgia.
By the way, did you see they switched stadiums on you?
Did I see that? No, I didn't. Which stadium are we going to now?
I'll have to look it up. I'll get back to you. But John Garcia posted something on his Twitter account this morning where they had moved the rivals camp from one stadium to the next, so you might want to look that up, and you might want to switch hotels because there's no telling.
No, Jerry's putting me in the good hotel that you were talking about.
When you go in there, make sure you ask for a room that overlooks the runway. I'm telling you what, take yourself a beer up to your room, sit on the back porch, and watch those planes land and take off. It's pretty cool. Just remember, you're being taped.
Southern Crescent Stadium. That's the one, right? Yeah, that was the one that it was previously. So we're good. That's just on the south side of the.
So they sent you all right, because initially it was going to be where they've had it the last 2 years. So
yeah, it wasn't at some high school the last few years.
It was. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have a good time up there. Nick's going to be up there covering the invite camp or the invite camp, which is the best of the best. So he'll be up there Sunday and. He'll have some interviews with the kids, some video probably. So you leaving tomorrow?
I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave tomorrow in the afternoon. Working on some other stuff. So there is another 2026 kid that did get offered today. Edric Williams. I can't remember where his high school where he goes to high school. But that's another 2026 offer. That's a defensive back that was actually here for a junior day. In January, not the extensive offer list as some of the other guys that we talked about today, but Surtan he reported an offer from Pat Surtan earlier today, so I imagine that Surtan came by the high school and gave him a visit. And it's funny we were talking about Gainesville High School earlier. Something that I saw come across the trickler, what you know what it's called. Tickler. Yeah. That's a Freudian slip of all time.
You are going to Atlanta.
Yeah. Jamarian Matthews, who is transferred to Gainesville High School, has apparently sent an official visit to Florida State for June 22nd. What? So that's obviously a kid that was offered at junior day, committed to Alabama later in February, but that's obviously that's Pot Roast has done some work getting some D linemen to set official visits and offering some new ones here. So I haven't been able to confirm with Jamarion, but that was put in by somebody in the rival system today. So I have to imagine that it's good information. Just trying to cross our T's and dot our I's on that one. So I'll probably have something on the board about that later today.
Well, maybe I'll get Pot Roast out of trouble with the fan base because he was getting barbecued on Twitter yesterday about recruiting.
Yeah, I feel bad for Pot Roast because he doesn't deserve the vitriol, but also sometimes you need to just get off Twitter. And I know that you and I know this very well because we spend a lot of time on Twitter. Sometimes you just need to close the app and get off of it.
Yeah, I think if you're a coach, you don't want to get into it with the fan base. Now
that's certainly a recipe for success is getting
and
into
I
with
don't
your fan
understand
base
that.
before
You know,
you've
he could have been talking about anything. He could have been talking about the Celtics. He's a big Celtics guy. Could have been, but it was cryptic, right? And people took it as he was either you're a Florida State fan or not. Now he's a huge Celtics guy, and they were getting drubbed by the Knicks, so it could have been say, hey, you're either a Celtics fan or not. But yeah, I would take all the guesswork out of it because I did read the. And listen, some people like to gaslight people, then they don't ever pick up the phone again, right? They just tweet it out. They don't ever look at the comments. But anyway, it was funny. Yeah, and you're right. Just lay off. The guy hadn't coached the game yet. Let's see if he's a football coach. If he can recruit whoever they give him to play, let somebody else go out and find the players, which is the way these offices are set up anyway. They're go more and more to scouting. But yeah, it was kind of funny. And
it's and that's part of the problem. And I've talked about this on the show before. It's like I wish I could have seen like practice this spring and see what he's like coaching these guys and have a better idea for him completely as a football coach and a hire, because we could sit here and say, well, he's not talking to kids enough, or he's not putting his full effort into recruiting.
And we don't.
If Florida State has a really, really good defensive line this year, that's going to ultimately weigh a little bit more.
Right. And this all goes back to one kid, right? Cam Brooks. It came out that Tony White and Terrence Knighton didn't go see Cam Brooks, who ultimately commits to Cal. Now, although Mike Norvell had gone into school, listen, I don't think, just based off my experience working in it and being around the game my entire life, if the visit from the head coach is not going to stop you from committing to Cal, would somebody that you have never met in your life stop you from committing to another school? No. The answer to that question is no. If he had had an existing relationship with Terrence Knighton or Tony White from a different school and they leverage that relationship being at Florida State, yes. But listen, and here's the thing. They've got 6 months to make inroads with the kid. Knighton does. So let's just see what happens. I think the chances are less than 50% he ends up at Cal at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a matter of forced outrage. I think, is it good that Florida State didn't get that Florida State lost out to Cal? No, It's not great. But we're making declarations about how good a coach is at recruiting, and we're making declarations about all this stuff over one kid that committed in April.
Right.
And if I don't understand how we can be outraged by this when we've seen, especially last year, that everything about a program's recruiting can change at the flip of a hat or the flip of a coin, especially
the filling of a very large suitcase
or the deflating of a balloon over a 2-10 season. You can be rah-rah and mad and outraged about it, and you can be sour about it, which it's well within your right. I mean, you never want to lose a kid that you feel like you should get the layups on the trail, so to speak. But it got blown out of proportion. And while I do have my reservations about how he's done on the recruiting trail so far, there's so long to go. And with knowing how big of a year on the football field, never mind the recruiting trail that it is for this program, I would much rather see a world in which there's a much better product on the defensive line come August 30th than, maybe you whiff or you lose out on an early commitment for one or two kids. Right?
Yeah.
So
listen, you can't make a decision. First of all, these guys are paid to coach. That's his first priority. Then it's to recruit. Let's see what happens. It's one kid, and they got time to build that relationship. And Mike was in the school, so we'll see what happens. But hey, I'm glad he did it. We just filled up 10 minutes worth of content because Terrence Knight didn't go see Cam Brooks. So thank you. All right, listen. If you've been waiting for the 2:30 softball game to start, you are exactly 2 minutes away from first pitch.
How about that?
They just put on the ACC network that 4:05 is going to be the first pitch, and it's 4:03, and that means it's probably a good time to say goodbye to everyone until next week. Nick will be coming. We'll talk to Nick on Monday about what he learned in Atlanta from some of these kids. I will likely be doing it from a beach chair on St. George Island. Nick, I hate to rub that in, but you got to do what
I'm gonna take some time off next week, a couple days after.
I'm gonna do
Atlanta.
a working vacation. I'm gonna work some, but I'm gonna stick my toes in the sand. I'll be around at 3:00 to do the show. So we'll be back at 3. We'll have Kurt or Bob on to talk. Well, probably have both of them on, talk baseball and softball. We'll have Nick on to talk recruiting. We'll go through another over-under for a couple of teams in the ACC for football season. And we'll talk about whatever else breaks over the weekend. But thanks for watching. We'll be back at 3 on Monday afternoon. And if you have not subscribed to the Osceola YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button before you finish watching today, whether it's tape or live right now or taped right now. If you're watching it taped, it's still right now. And hit the notification button so that you get notifications of when we're going to do these shows, either taped or live. Sometimes we do special breakout segments depending on what breaking news is going on. But Annabelle Wydra is warming up for Florida State on the circle. They call it circle in softball, right? It's not a hill, it's the circle. She's in the circle throwing pitches to the catcher. So we're about to start a softball regional against Robert Morris. So everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Nick, thanks for dropping in. Have fun. Go to Magic City. Enjoy some wings. And then they might have a tickler there.